Welcome to Alternative Investments Chat,
where we demystify the world of alternative investments and financing for entrepreneurs and investors alike.
With these discussions, we hope you're more empowered to unlock opportunities in your business or portfolio. I'm Erin.
And I'm Erica. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Alternative Investments Chat. And guys, can you believe it? We are halfway through 2026.
I certainly can't believe it. It seems like we just had the new year.
I know, right? It was just my birthday. I'm in February. Like, I feel like I can't have another birthday coming up again. That means I'm getting old, right? And plus, I haven't even started those New Year's resolutions. Not that I'm going to follow. Actually, I've done really good this year. My New Year's resolution is no New Year's resolution.
Perfect. There you go.
But with us being halfway through the year, now is the time that investors like to kind of pause, look at their portfolios, and ask, am I still where I want to be?
Exactly. You set your goals in January, watch markets move, and by mid-year, those moves can guide you where you need to relocate. Mm-hmm. This episode is actually a perfect segue from a recent episode that we just did about earnings season. So if you didn't tune into that one, be sure to check it out. Yes. After quarterly reports roll in, it's natural for investors to look around at their investments and decide maybe they want to move some things around depending on what was in those reports. So halfway through the year, not only are you getting hit with overwhelming amount of info from quarter two reports, but also anxiety that time is running out to maximize your returns on your portfolio.
So consider this episode your chill pill, okay, guys? We're going to talk about how the professionals reassess risk halfway through the year and rebalance, not just in public markets, but across private credit, real estate, private equity, and infrastructure. Mm-hmm. It's one of the most practical habits investors can build, taking stock of results, of the results so far, and then deciding where to adjust and what's coming up next.
Yeah, exactly. So, as usual, let's tackle this topic with baby steps. If you're new here, let me say that we always start from the beginning.
Yes.
We break down topics that can get complicated really quickly so that even someone who knows nothing about finance can jump in and follow along. And those of you who do maybe know some things and have some experience can hopefully learn something new along the way as well.
Or if we did it wrong, leave us a comment and we'll fix it. Okay, how about that? We want to learn as well.
Yeah, exactly. But so many of like finance podcasts out there, you tune in and you're like, I already have no idea what they're talking about. So we don't do that here. So let's define what rebalancing is. This is when investors may buy or sell investments to ensure that they align with their goals, interests, and market fluctuations. Okay. This action is perfectly tied to diversification. You want a diversified portfolio so that your potential profits aren't wrapped up into one single investment or industry. Mm-hmm. And this helps protect you in case something doesn't go according to plan.
That's right. We don't put all of our eggs in one basket. Mm-hmm. We like omelets for breakfast, but not in our portfolio, right? So it's also worth mentioning that you aren't married to your portfolio, okay? Of course, there are investments that are a little bit more illiquid than others, and you might not be able to adjust those very often or as often as maybe you want. But the way you set up your portfolio 5 years ago is not the exact same way you need it to set up now.
Yeah.
So it's better to think of your portfolio as a living, breathing thing. Kind of like, you remember those Tamagotchis?
Yeah.
Did you have one? I had like 5.
I didn't. I always wanted one and I never got one.
I think I broke one and I got myself another one. Anyway, so its health is affected regardless of whether you check it or don't. Like if you left it on your desk, you're probably going to die. But
yeah.
It's going to, and even if you did check it, probably going to die anyway. That was the whole point of the game, I'm pretty sure. But the more you actually care for your portfolio, the more likely it is to flourish because, you want to make sure you're taking care of that. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the reasons investors might want to rebalance their portfolios? Well, their portfolio has naturally drifted away from its intended asset allocation or mix. I've seen that. I'm experiencing that myself. The risk associated with their investment has changed to levels maybe that they aren't comfortable with or they don't desire anymore. Yeah. So, and then there's a risk tolerance has changed overall as well. I know same thing for me. When I first started, I was really risk adverse. And now I'm like, hey, maybe I'll go a little bit more risky. So
change it up.
Yeah, change it up. So to capitalize on buying low and selling high, that's what we really want to do within our portfolio. Again, what's high? What's when you set it, may not be high anymore.
Yeah.
So it's another reason to just reassess.
Keep an eye.
These are just a few of the reasons I think give a good illustration of why you would want to relook at your portfolio.
Exactly. And when it comes to rebalancing your portfolio, it's typically recommended to do so annually. Some folks out there do it twice a year. Some people do it quarterly, I've seen. And if that's you, you do you, boo.
Do it.
Who am I to tell you what to do?
Your money, my friend.
Yeah, you can do whatever you like. But other people might also just rebalance when an asset reaches an uncomfortable threshold, or they might combine the calendar method with the threshold method together. Rebalancing can be done with an advisor, which is what we would recommend. But even if you do the DIY steps, it's pretty much the same. You're just missing out on that expert guidance and perspective.
Yeah.
So the first step to take is simple here. You're going to compare your actual allocation to your original plan. Ideally, before venturing into the wild west of investing, you'll have a plan for how much you want to allocate to what asset category.
Exactly. And if you don't, it's not a big deal. Let's get that squared away, ASAP Rocky style, as I like to say. In the past, the golden child of allocation was that 60-40 or 60% in equities and 40% in bonds, if you're not familiar with that 60-40 term. Well, now that really isn't cutting it anymore. Most advisors are recommending looking beyond just stocks and bonds and integrating in those alternative assets as well. And if you're here, which we hope you are, you know that we are all about exploring alternatives. Hence our name.
It's kind of
the name. But so what is the perfect mix now, today? Well, again, there isn't really one allocation setup that is like a one size fits all. And we all know one size fits all is not one size fits all. It's one size fits most. And I'm normally not most, but that's okay. I've tried many times. But we might look at somewhere between 5 to 30% for alternatives alone, depending on the investor profile. Regardless of what your ideal mix looks like, you should have like a reference and to help kind of guide you. What are you looking for here, right?
Exactly. So now that you have one, right, let's look at where your investment portfolio stands. Now, you'll find a lot of the time that percentages aren't where they started when you go to rebalance again. Why is that? Well, because different parts of your portfolio grow and shrink at different rates over time. And this is just a natural consequence of the market. Now you'll want to identify what is off target. You might find that your stocks are 5% overweight or bonds are 4% underweight, depending on what rebalancing strategy you're using. But this might not necessarily set off alarm bells. Some investors who do the threshold rebalancing method, they instead rebalance their portfolios not necessarily back to the target numbers exactly. They just decide a threshold that they're comfortable with. And if the percentage is within that threshold, then they'll just let it be. So for example, if your target allocation is stocks is 55%, and you decide that you have a 6% threshold, you're chilling if your allocation drifts between 49 and 61%. You're like, this is fine. No need for me to freak out and move everything around.
I got to get rid of that 6% somewhere.
Exactly.
Just let it ride. You can rebalance later if necessary. So next comes the age-old question of behavior. Not our behavior. We're perfect. How did each part of your alternative mix actually perform? Did they meet your expectations? Stocks are pretty easy to rebalance as they simply bought and sold. Okay, I'd get rid of some of this, buy a little bit of that, whatever it may be. But when it comes to all those alternatives, we know that these are more illiquid and you might not be able to move them around very easily, if at all, unfortunately. So on top of that, you might not get frequent updates about how your private investments are performing because they're not required to do that, to put out those reports the way that public companies are. We've talked about this many times. I do have that at one investment that is private, and I don't know what the heck's going on, and it drives me nuts, but I've let it go.
It's an exercise in patience.
It is, and I just keep telling myself it's going to be fine. So how do they fold into rebalancing? Okay. Well, let me tell you. Instead of thinking about fine-tuning alternatives, think more about rebalancing around them. So depending on what kind of alt you have, there may be dividends, interest, or distributions coming your way. Use this quote-unquote cash back to rebalance your portfolio.
Yeah, exactly. To me, it feels kind of like the cash back that you get on your credit card. when I see cash back, I'm like, oh my God, free money.
Free.
But it's not really free, right? Like you
spent
it and it's like your payment back from the credit card company for investing in them. And so this is kind of similar when you get that cash back. It's really just your returns coming back to you. Some alts also have exit opportunities that can give you the option to pull your money out, right? You can plan your rebalancing around these events if you wanted to take advantage of the potentially liquid cash that could come your way. But pros don't just ask, did it make money? They also asked, did it behave the way that I expected it to? Did private credit hold up when rates changed? Did real estate still smooth out my volatility in my portfolio? A lot of investors use wider thresholds or threshold bands around alternatives in their portfolio, and which is really like a mental thing. If your money is locked up and you can't do anything about it anyways, might as well save yourself the stress of freaking out when it's a few points out of your preferred range and just, sitting tight, because if you're going to get penalized for taking it out or you can't move it anyways, what's the point of losing sleep over it?
Yeah, stress over something that you can't change. It's not a good feeling either. So remember, the idea behind adding alternatives into your portfolio is because they behave differently than traditional assets. That's what we like about them, right? They are basically like built-in diversification. So when you have those unexpected bumps in the road, you're typically better positioned to recover, at least in a well-built mix, that is.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the trade-off. Longer lockup periods, but potentially higher returns, and increased diversification. Again, what we're always looking for. And then once you've evaluated each of how these sleeves perform, you need to make a decision. Okay, you can't just look at it and then go, okay, and sit there. Common advice for a mid-year outlook is to top up what your fits into your goals, whichever one you want to say, and trim what's become outsized, of course, off, right? So a nice little trim, like I'm going to get in 2 weeks with my new hair. I want to trim it all off. I got to keep it nice and tight, right? Keep in mind, if a certain investment is doing really well, you might be tempted to throw all your money towards that asset. This one's really doing, I'm going to put more, but this isn't rebalancing, okay? In fact, this could put your portfolio out of balance because again, if you shift it all to one thing, we don't like that. If you remember nothing else from this episode, please remember that the key is to stay diversified. We're not out here chasing cash highs, or we're trying to build, long-term wealth. We want to be, when we're ready to retire, I want money. So I want to make sure I have
to live. Exactly.
So now moving things around sounds easy though, but there is a hungry guest lurking in the corner. Not me this time. Not me this time. Yeah, knock on the door. His name is Uncle Sam. Okay. Yeah. And he wants your tax.
No!
Get away.
Sorry to the people fixing the audio and post. I'm like screaming into the mic.
It's all right.
Yeah, but don't remind me. There's a reason I'm screaming. Tax season traumatized me enough.
I know.
But it's true. Making moves might trigger taxes that could make you rethink doing it at all. Like anything though, there's like pros and cons, and you have to decide what makes sense. If the cons fully outweigh the pros, well, maybe you don't want to do anything about it. When you rebalance by selling investments in a taxable brokerage account, which is probably the most common account that people have, especially when you're first just getting started with investing, you may owe taxes on gains. Short-term capital gains, which are held less than 1 year, are taxed at your ordinary income rate higher, right? And then long-term capital gains, which are held more than 1 year, are taxed at 0, 15, or 20%, depending on your income. Additionally, dividends and distributions can create taxable income as well. And oh boy, do I know that after filing my taxes this year. Ouch. It's like, yay, look at this. Look at dividends. No, somebody took them away.
Right, you lost them all in the taxes pretty much.
Yeah, it feels that way. Not quite actually in reality, but it's hard. It's hard to see it slip away.
Yes.
Come back. Now, there is a way around this, though, using tax-advantaged accounts. Rebalancing inside these accounts is tax-free, and these are accounts like your 401k or an IRA. IRA, not an RIA. And see, that's the thing about finance people. Why you got to use the same 3 letters and then just change it around? It's confusing.
It is. We'll get through an
IRA account.
Okay. So safe to say, if you're trying to avoid triggering those taxes, look at rebalancing in your tax advantage accounts first, if you have them, which again, don't listen to us on everything, but listen to us on this. Get some of those accounts, okay? If you don't currently have one, you're going to want to look into them. Trust me, and it's going to make sense. Okay, so obviously for assets like bonds or private investments, when you hand over your money to invest, you agree to a holding period. So try to avoid moving these investments until the holding period is over. I know it's hard, as you'll often receive a penalty for a fee for withdrawing early. We talked about that in a different episode. Again, tune in that one. That's the slap wrist one, going to get hit with that.
Yep, exactly. Want to avoid that if you can.
Yes.
Okay, so I think maybe if we run through an example, we might be able to better illustrate some of our points that we made here.
I like that.
So let's say our investor, Phoebe, yes,
My puppy.
my dog,
Your puppy.
has a 401k tax advantage account with $300,000 in it, a taxable brokerage account with $200,000 in it, and some private investments that value up to $100,000, meaning she has a total of $600,000 in her portfolio.
Excuse me?
Yeah, my dog is doing really well for herself. She needs to share some of that with me.
Yeah.
But let's say that her target allocation is 60% stocks, 30% bonds, and 10% alternatives. After the market moves and she's ready to take a look at her portfolio and maybe do some rebalancing, she finds that her stocks are at $420K, 70%.
Okay.
Which is higher. Bonds are at $120K, which is 20% lower. And alternatives are at $60K, 10%.
Okay.
Which...
She good there. So now we know that stocks are 10% overweight.
Yep.
Bonds are 10% underweight. And alternatives are kind of like right on the money, right?
Yep.
So we know that private investments are illiquid, so we need to work around them because we can't really mess with that 10%. So looking at her target allocation, we can see that the stocks need to be reduced by 60K and bonds need to be increased by 60K, right? So what we don't want to do, if we can avoid it, of course, is sell stocks out of that taxable account. Correct? We just talked about that. So let's look at where her assets are held. So in her 401k, gosh, man, this dog, I'm telling you, she ready for life.
Yeah, she's doing well.
She's got about $210,000 in stocks and $90,000 in bonds. So in her brokerage account, she has $160 in stocks and $40K in bonds. So luckily, she can actually sell those that $60,000 of stocks in her 401k, non-taxable, and reallocate that to the bonds in the same account to hit her target. So it's within that one.
Exactly. And, knowing this now, my dog needs to start paying rent.
I think so.
Do you at least make me a beneficiary? I'm like, come on. Who are you going to give your money to, Phoebe?
Yeah.
You don't even have any children. Better be coming to me, your one and only caregiver.
Yes.
But let's say that next year her private investments grow. Yay. And now they are 5% overweight. However, they're still in a holding period, so we can't move them. You can instead allocate more funds to stocks and bonds so that piece of the pie, the alternatives piece of the pie, shrinks in comparison. And voila, you're on target again. I hope that this little example here was helpful in demonstrating what rebalancing is all about. Obviously, it's a pretty round number example. But I think it's a good way to, think about how this process actually works. And here are a quick checklist that the pros use often during the mid-year reset. So you might want to ask yourself 3 questions. Is my overall mix, including alternatives, still aligned with my risk tolerance? Are my alternatives doing what I want them to do? And do I have enough liquidity for the next few years? Am I moving towards that goal? These questions can turn a very complex process into a simpler, practical mid-year reset. And you know what they say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Ew, gross. I don't want to eat an elephant. But anyways.
No one's asking you to.
I know.
It's an idiom.
Sometimes the idioms make me laugh. So anyway, so the post Q2 landscape is less about predictions and more about efficiency, ensuring your portfolio is aligned with what you want. Not what anyone else wants, what you want. Markets move fast, but discipline moves wealth, right? We've said that, I think, a few times within our podcast. Investors who check, rebalance, and adjust deliberately tend to remain the most resilient. And that's what we want to try to instill in our listeners here. So use this July as an opportunity to breathe, evaluate and redefine. Or if you're like me, I'm going on vacation here in a few weeks, so I'm going to be there. So you can take that one as well.
Exactly. And follow the AOC podcast for more insights on how alternative investments fit into a modern portfolio. But for today, that's all we got for you. Yeah. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for more insight on our next episode.
And don't forget to subscribe to continue the Alternative Investments chat. See you next time.
The content provided in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as professional financial or investment advice. This podcast should not be construed as an offer to sell or a solicitation of any offer to buy any securities. We strongly recommend that you seek advice from a qualified professional before making any financial decisions. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Invesio.